Kuwabara. Thank you, Reggie. I'm Julie Kuwabara. I'm the Cultural Organizing Program Manager from the Center for Cultural Power, and I'm also a theater artist. As a visual introduction, as part of our practice at the Center for Cultural Power, I am Asian with brown eyes. I have brown hair, brown bangs, hair going down to my shoulders, and I'm wearing a white t-shirt with an Adidas logo. And I'm also sitting in front of virtual background that is pink and orange. And my pronouns are she, her, and I'm calling in from the ancestral land of Duwamish, Suquamish, and Stillaguamish, and the Muckleshoot people, colonially known as Seattle, Washington. Next slide. And a little bit about the Center for Cultural Power, and primarily the group that I come from, the cultural organizing sector of the Center for Cultural Power. We center collaboration and belonging to move people from isolation to inspiration and redistribute cultural power more equitably. Next slide. And we believe in the wisdom of cultural organizers, artist disruptors, culture bearers, movement organizers, and directly impacted communities to ignite the change we need. And so today, this is our agenda. We're going to have our welcome, which we just did, land acknowledgement, a conocimiento practice to get us grounded. We'll talk about the story of self, the story of now and us, and narrative strategy in action. And then we'll do a little bit of a practice of strategy in action with all of you. And then we're going to close. So that's our 90 minutes together. And our community care guidelines here as we are workshopping together, we will be interactive. We're going to share stories, hopefully from personal experiences. I want to honor folks that are coming into the space with good intentions. We can ask for a pause to ground and breathe. And let's gift ourselves with the collective expertise and the wisdom in the room. Thanks, Reggie. And our land acknowledgement. So I want to acknowledge the land of the Duwamish people that I'm calling in from. This is our way of how we pay our respects to the elders past and present on the future, and that we recognize that sovereignty was never ceded and it was never given up. We also acknowledge the continued legacy of systemic racism stemming from the historic inequities of genocide and slavery, which equally require a process of truth and reconciliation in our nation. And I'd like to give space for all of you. If you would like to, please say the name or write in chat of the Native people's land that you are calling in from. Or you can just say it quietly in your own spaces right now. Thank you so much. All right, and we'll move on to our conocimiento practice. So conocimiento is by way of Gloria Anzaldúa, and this is a process of knowing, and it is acknowledging that there are levels of higher consciousness. It is a way for us to open all the senses, that we are not only limited by our mind, but we also engage in our hearts and our bodies when we are learning. This is alternative ways of knowing and feeling, and we practice this as a way to ground ourselves as a community, and that we are learning from each other. Hence, we are building our consciousness as a collective. So we are going to ground ourselves with 3 breaths. Whatever you are, wherever you are right now, if you're sitting, if you're standing, ground down. Feel the ground underneath your feet. Let the earth hold you at this time. Close your eyes if it's accessible, or soft gaze forward. And we're going to breathe out. And breathe it in, and hold. Breathe out. Breath in, hold, breathe it out. Our last breath in together, breathe it in, hold, and breathe out. I want to thank you all for taking this time to come together, to collectively learn. And thank you all for the good work that you are all doing individually and that we are collectively building together. And when you're ready, slowly come back into the virtual space. Open your eyes, let the light come into your eyes, come back in to the room. Thank you all so very much. All right. Reggie, let's go to our next slide. We're going to watch a video. This is called Propel, the Journey of a Narrative.
Voyagers explore and propel toward shores by understanding the play between a storm and what forms on the sea surface. Ancient knowledge of voyaging can teach us ways that artists and organizers work together to change culture. Culture is the sea we all move through. Narratives appear as waves. New, transformative narratives rise with the energy of organizers and artists navigating currents of politics, economics, and media. At the Center for Cultural Power, we come from the land of narrative strategy. By narrative, we mean the stories we tell ourselves about the world and how it works. The way art and stories portray an issue changes our attitudes and behaviors. The journey of moving a narrative is a long one. It might make folks feel like they are sinking under so many issues and divisions. The world we want to make serves as our North Star. We are always moving forward toward it, knowing so much is beyond our control. To build transformational narratives, we look first to the conditions to build momentum. For example, in conditions of deep economic instability, labor movements or efforts like Occupy show us new ways to imagine prosperity. It's not simple sailing. Culture is a complex force, and complex conditions make changing mindsets tough. We have more control over some conditions, like how we organize. Keep our eyes on the horizon for how other currents combine and create conditions for a culture wave. We notice tipping points that surge a narrative forward. Artists and organizers meet the moment with lots of art and stories. The pandemic was a critical peak, moving narratives of health, race, and economic justice. Natural disaster, death, outrage, economic instability. Between waves, it's time to strengthen our narratives. As we emerge from the pandemic, coalitions keep narratives about essential workers front and center. Labor movements are making demands and growing. Those committed to justice play the long game. The narratives that surfaced following the killing of George Floyd in 2020 came about, among other reasons, because people invested in scholarship, cultural knowledge, and organizing over time. Rooted in the experiences and strengths of our own communities, let's learn how narratives travel. That's the journey. Join us on the voyage.
Great. Thank you so much, Reggie. Oh my God, my screen just went funny. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. 1 second. Let me just check. Please check, as Reggie would say. All right. Uh, I want to call out, there was a comment in the chat about, I like the way the art is, it makes me feel relaxed. And I want you all to keep that because that is one part of cultural and organizing, cultural strategy, um, is the way it makes you feel. So here is a quote from, here's a quote from Whole Story Group about collective narratives. At its core, narratives are tools that activate a sense of belonging and othering. The stories we tell ourselves and each other in time become narratives that reinforce and refine our existing worldviews. This mounting collection of narratives contain the power to shape, if not outright determine, our future stories, which is from a narrative strategy group named Whole Story Group, which we've worked with in the past at the Center for Cultural Power. Next slide. Thank you. So Marshall Ganz is a social and community organizer, and he came up with this concept of the story of self, the story of now, and the story of us. And we're going to go through this journey here. So what Marshall says is a story of self is a personal story that Ganz says shows why you or why we were called to what you have been called to do. And everyone has a story about an experience that got them involved in a given cause. So the core and what I want to seed in all of you is what have you been called to do? And I'd like us to, well, all of you, to do a little journaling on the story of yourself. So here's some prompts for you. Next slide. Start with, my name is. I am born of. My story began with. I learned early on that. And my core values are, but. I'll give you an example. My name is Julie. I am born of analog and digital intersectionalities. My story began as a cultural strategist when I had a conversation with my father, who said his superpower was the power of being invisible to people. I learned early on that creatively challenging myself is a way that I grow as an artist. And my core values are belonging, emergence, and finding the funny in things. So I'd like all of us here in the room to take a few minutes to journal with these prompts. And what we're going to do is do a little share out after the few minutes are over. So Reggie, if you wouldn't mind playing us a little bit of some soft music to get us in the mood. All right. I hope you all enjoyed the beautiful sounds of silence given to us from Reggie. Thank you so much, Reggie. It was beautiful. Michael, I see that you are happy to share. Would you care to come on the mic and share what you've written?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Michael. My name is Michael. I am born of Vietnamese refugees searching for a new home. My story began with coming out to my parents in Texas, which eventually led me to law school. And then once I graduated law school, a really good close friend of mine passed away. His name is Viet, which he wasn't out to his parents, so I naturally had to become the bridge between his grieving parents, his boyfriend, a family, um, and QT empowerment that really led me to help become a leader in the queer and trans API movement. I learned early on that community organizing is how we build our power collectively, and my core values are empathy, power sharing, and persistence in movement building.
Mm, thank you so much for sharing. That was really beautiful. Thank you so much. I loved how you said the word bridge and the empathy building and persistence in moving and movement building. Thank you so much for sharing. We have time for maybe two more people to come on the mic, or if you want, you folks can also share in the chat. That would be really beautiful to do. Ryan, I'm going to read Ryan's, if that's okay. My name is Ryan. I'm born of first daughters in a culture of patriarchy. My story began with my parents' disappointments and their struggles to please their parents. I learned early on that being part of society is to be responsible. My core values are of caring for members of my community and helping people feel greater belonging. Thank you, Ryan, for sharing. I definitely can relate. Thank you so much. Ezra, my mic is giving me issues, but I can share in chat. Okay, yeah, please share in chat. Yeah. More stories, the better. Yes. Okay. Okay. Well, we're going to move to the story of now. And thank you so much for folks who have shared in the chat and came on mic. I really appreciate it. And now, as we move into the story of now, Marshall Ganz talks about the challenge this community faces and the hope to which we can aspire. It is urgent, rooted in the values from your story of self, and it calls us to action. And I think that's a really key part. So I want to seed in you all the action part of the story of building narratives. And I want to put out to the group, this will be a little discussion we're going to have now, is what challenges are our or your community facing? Of course, you're right. Thank you so much. Here we go. Thank you for reminding me, Zay. I appreciate that a lot. Yes. So, what challenges are our communities facing? You can put it in chat. Erasure of the trans community. Thank you, Ryan. What else? Displacement. Thank you, Shar. What are we facing right now? What is urgent? Economic disenfranchisement. I got that. Thank you. Climate change, systemic violence, yes. Active disinvestment and dismantling of the social safety nets created by our queer elders. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Well, the next question for all of us as we think about the story of now, what are folks choosing to do at this time? Oh, let me get Nina was talking about deportation, Ze, combustion from conflict, including within community organizing / advocacy groups. Okay. So the next question, what are folks choosing to do at this time? What are y'all choosing to do at this time? Daniel, continue to tell our stories. For me, it's through LGBTQIA plus research in my day job and creating spaces for the LGBTQI plus Filipinx communities in my community work. Digital community building and networking, yes. What else are we choosing to do? Resting. Someone said resting and granting ourselves space to just be. I'm running, Michael says I'm running for elected office in San Francisco, building an organization of volunteers who are mobilizing folks to share my message of advocating for more investment in our communities. Reggie says building, leading on, and contributing to my immediate and broad community. Charlene is saying tend to the land. There's a lot of options out. Oh, and someone is, yes, this is a good option too. Sewing, napping, and gardening for the ancestors and such. Yes to some gardening. Okay, we've got a lot of choices going on. Heavy on the napping. I cannot say that so much. Yes. Heavy on the napping. Yes, on the naps. Naps to the naps. That's what I'm going to say right now. Yep. Okay. And our last question is, what do we hope for? And I think, Ray, did you know I was going to ask this question? Deepening connection and roots with immediate neighbors and learning new skills. Rest is resistance. So what do we hope for? What do we hope for? And let me put that in the chat. What do we hope for? I think Ray teed us up on that already. Deepening connection and roots with immediate neighbors. But what else? What do you hope for in this time, in the story of now, with all this going on? Abundance, ease, easefulness. I know what you're saying. So we got that going on. I hope for a day where folks can live and exist in our world without persecution, feeling powerful to create the world we want to live in. Yes. More laughing? Mm-hmm. Yes, Shar. More dancing. Yes. A future of safety and belonging. Yes. Ryan, more compassion. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that is the story of now. And equity, collective liberation, and abolishment of capitalism and colonial systems. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. I think it's a great way to go into and abolish the police. Okay, yes, Ryan. Uh-huh. Okay, yeah. Well, let's move into the story of us, because I'm hoping you all are seeing the collective wisdoms and the collectiveness of what you all are sharing together right now. So the story of us. Next slide. So the story of us, again from Marshall Ganz, is a collective story. Hello. That says illustrates the shared purposes, goals, vision of a community or organization. As with the story of self, the story of us focuses on a challenge, a choice, and an outcome, just like what we just did right now. I want to bring this into an example of this, of narrative strategy in action. So we're going to take a look at a video from NQAPIA. It's a campaign that ran a while ago, I believe. Is that right, Reggie? Yeah. Family is still family. Oh, 10 years. And okay, so it's 10 years ago, but I think there's a lot of relevance still, especially with what Michael brought into the room, the story that Michael just brought in. Um, and family is still family, and this was in partnership with PFLAG and the Asian Pride Project. So let's take a look at this video, and then we'll go from there.
太多的时候，我们的孩子在这社会里遭到歧视、孤立和排挤。我以我儿子为荣，我一直为他感到骄傲，他一点也没有改变。现在是时候站起来，支持你的孩子、我的孩子、我们的孩子，分享你的故事，爱及接受你的孩子。不管他是同性恋、双性恋、跨性别恋者，无论如何，家人毕竟是家人，爱依然是爱。I do this because I love my son.
Thank you so much, Reggie. And I want to call Reggie into the room.
Present.
Thank you. Check you off. You're in attendance. So, Reggie, we had a conversation about this campaign earlier this week, and I was hoping that you could share a little bit more about, first of all, why this campaign is still important right now.
Of course. So this is, and I see a couple old heads in the chat. Shout out. So definitely feel free to chime in the chat with any additional context. But this sort of like family acceptance initiative really started at NQAPIA around 2016 with the Family is Family. And then this video series of about 9 videos, Family is Still Family, came out around the 2020s, and it is a series of videos across 9 different languages, particularly of family members, folks that are LGBTQ plus, talking about their experiences, both back in our homelands and then in Western society, with kind of their conception of like LGBTQ plus identity. Having a family member that is in the community really was the like catalyst to start navigating that like uncomfortable feeling for families that have not had someone that's out and don't know how to navigate those conversations. So this campaign over the last decade-ish has been an invitation for some of those family members to engage in those conversations with grace and curiosity, and hearing from community, because the this current iteration of NCAPIA, our staff now has been here 2 years or less, including myself. So even all of us are learning from folks that were around back in 2016 when these conversations first started up, and then when this video series came out around the 2020s-ish, about what the impact has been. And kind of being a newer staff member still, like looking back at the videos, it's like a really good, warm feeling, of course, but hearing about like the impact from folks of like this. First of all, I didn't know I was the only person. Like I didn't that was having these sorts of difficult family dynamics of even engaging in a conversation around identity. So here people were crying. It was beautiful. Just met some people and they were like, this changed my life. Which is also like amazing to hear that this kind of work was being done to also provide that invitation to family members and really close loved ones or guardians who may be well-intending. They might check to see if we ate today, but can we talk about me swishing down the hall, Auntie? Yes or no? So it was a really good invitation back then, and has had kind of that lasting impact. And we're wanting to see how we can sort of expand on this. Certainly more languages, plenty of underrepresented or unrepresented groups under this ginormous umbrella. So what does it look like, particularly in this era, to have these kinds of conversations, to either build off of them or have them in different modes of language and communication? So
A plus. Thank you
thanks.
so much for giving us. I can speak about being around a little. Oh, Ryan, do you want to come in the room, please? I would love more voices in the room, please, Ryan. Ryan, are you able to come on mic? Okay. If you're able to come on mic, come on in, but it's okay. No worries. Would love to have more voices in the room. I'm curious.
I can also chat. Sorry.
Please, yes, come on
Sure.
in.
Yeah, I'm so again, Michael Nguyen. I was the chair of GAPA, one of the member organizations of NCAPIA. I became chair in 2017, and I was chair for about 7 years, 6 or 7 years, I can't remember. But yeah, it was great to see NCAPIA push forward this campaign, a family acceptance campaign. And I shared earlier about my story with my friend Viet, whose mom and my mom were friends in Vietnam, and so we were both. He was the first person I came out to in over AOL Instant Messenger. That's a throwback. It's like 2000. This was 26 years ago. Um, but yeah, I think family acceptance is sort of, I think, still a big need in our queer and trans API communities, and that we should be able to live our lives freely and without shame, and love is love and all those things. And
Mhm.
I think in San Francisco, we have a lot of organizations dedicated to sort of that purpose, and seeing that in CAPIA, and we created a queer and trans API QTAPI coalition of organizations to kind of break down any kind of silos and just continue conversations. And we're able to definitely, have community and spaces where we can just feel like we just automatically belong. There's no question. So I think that has been really pivotal for us here in San Francisco Bay Area, and we started Queer and Trans API Week out of a lot of horrible things happening in the world in 2021 with the rise of anti-Asian hate, and have continued that legacy, and really proud that that has moved on. Like even after I have left and the co-founders have left the founding team, we are continuing to do QT API Week, and it spread to DC. So I'm really excited folks in DC have picked it up. I think there's other organizers. We presented it at Creating Change. Sorry, I think I'm just rambling now, but but yeah, it's just it's a lot, and movement building is definitely I think it's both micro and macro. It's like very personal, and then also kind of like bigger than like you and your city or your community, and it's just all of us here. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. Are not rambling. Thank you so much for bringing all of that in. I just want to highlight like the long, it's very something that was in the video about the long road and the change that we want the change that we want to see. And I think Michael just beautifully illustrated that in the story of how long this campaign has been ongoing. I do want to like ask this question of all of you, is that this is one part of the deep value of belonging when we have family acceptance. But oh God, I think I just answered my own question. I was going to ask, like, what is the deep value of family is still family? And I just answered that question. Good job, Julie. Okay. Anyway, um, thank you all. Thank you so much for bringing that forward. I love hearing about it. And let's go. So I want to talk a little more deeply and put the question to all of you. So this family is still family is a narrative strategy in action. And I want to, I'm looking at my notes right here. I want to put it to the group. This is, we're gonna try on being like you are all strategists actually. So I want us all to start building a collective story. Here we go. This is an experiment. All of us here in the room, Reggie, let's go to the next slide. And I want to put this question out to all of you here. What does it look like when our communities are seen and you're accessing care and living with dignity? First, let's answer that first question. What does it look like when our communities are seen, accessing care and living with dignity? I cannot see chat right now because of the Zoom. Zoom is acting funny on my computer, so I'm going to lean on Reggie to lead. Oh, okay, you got me here. Okay, great. And if anyone wants to come on the mic and talk, you can, and it doesn't have to be very long either. You can say a few words. What is the feeling? Actually, let's go back to the feeling. What does it feel like when our communities are seen and accessing care and living with dignity? When that is a daily norm, when we wake up and that is what we are experiencing every day. What is that for us?
And as folks get to the chat as well, I'm keeping an eye on. I want to uplift what Ryan also said. That I just want to say that this is a process to have difficult conversation across generations. A lot of LGBTQ plus children are struggling to even believe coming out is possible at the time and be
Mm,
accepted.
thank you. Thank you for bringing that into the room. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Reggie. I appreciate you as I have this up.
Daniel threw in, talking about feels, it feels like smiles and warm hugs.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just jump in. We had a recent Qt API block party to finish off Qt API week in 2026 here in San Francisco. It actually kicked off the week at City Hall with QT Strong and a kind of a march to the SF Community Health Center. So for me, what does it look like? What does it feel like? It's, literally dancing in the streets, cheering, recognition from the mayor from a major city to recognize the contributions of our LGBTQ and API leaders, and folks who haven't, have been doing this work for decades and haven't been recognized yet. It looks like organizations creating their own QT focused events like the SF Bay Times having their second annual queer women and non-binary folks in API queer women, API non-binary folks. That was really well attended and had Margaret Cho there. It was just like kind of a wild week. But the actual block party was just definitely community vibes, people who still don't know they have access to resources, and getting them connected. So that was for me, just good, happy feelings. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
We got a note from Ryan that Mike might be working now.
Okay.
Hello, can
Hi,
y'all hear
Ryan.
me?
Yes.
Okay, so I will do the trans advocacy thing here so what does it look like when trans communities are seen? Is to be housed properly, clothed properly, fed well, flourishing in their jobs, roles in society in some way or another. And the second question, I need a second.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, you just teed us up. So we can move into, as we think about, what it looks like. The other part is, well, how do we get there? And part of this, because we're talking about narratives, is who do you need to tell the story to? And what do you want them to feel when they hear these stories?
That might flow into a point of clarification in the chat or question.
Sure.
When our communities are seen, in quotes, seen by whom, inside or outside of LGBTQ plus communities, when we're thinking about the first and second question, I guess.
That is an excellent question. That can be either or, too. So it's really up to how you want to answer that. I would say, yeah, that is that's part of our strategy. That is part of when we talk about narrative strategy, because it does sound like there are multiple paths of getting to the future. So part of it is working internally on how you all access the internal structures within the community, and then also what does it look like when the full community is seen by an outside perspective, like from an ally perspective? What is it that you would want an ally to see? How do you want them to feel? How do you want them to stand by and uplift the community too? So there's two parts to this. And thank you so much for bringing that up into the room, because that is part of when we think about the strategy behind when we uplift these narratives that we want to see. Is that helpful? Is that more clear? That's a great question. I see a hand. Yes, Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul from Seattle. Yeah, I raised the question because, if we were to talk about narrative change, I feel like, the stories we tell ourselves, and within the community, will be very different from, how we project
Yes.
to the external communities. And I feel like sometimes, if I were to ask myself how familiar I am with different parts of, our community, I'm not sure I am that familiar. And so for me, I feel like that I need to understand more about, how different populations in our community, so that there is a sense of empowerment within, uh, and before we worry about, how other people perceive us. So
Mm,
yeah, so that's what I raised the question. Yeah, but yeah,
yeah.
thanks for the clarification.
Oh, no, thank you, Paul. I would like to invite anyone else to come in and if they have any thoughts about that too. I think what you raised is very important.
Sure, I'll say something about this. I think, especially as trans people, it's a two-part thing. You need to assert your sense of authenticity, right? So we need to try and express our authentic selves, and um, it's very dangerous for trans people to express their authentic selves. A lot of us are also frequently um, neurodivergent and have issues with communicating, miscommunicating, having people um, get upset at us for the way that we communicate. Um, yeah, so it's very challenging to bridge that gap. Um, so for me, it's like being able to feel like we can bring our authentic selves, um, and navigating ruptures and harm, um, and believing that we can get onto the other side without being rejected or pushed out by society, right?
Mm,
Um, and so, um, in at workplaces, one of the important things is to truly um, truly like tell like inform and train fellow staff, um, cultural sensitivity about um, gender in a way that doesn't put so much onus on the trans person, for example, and
mm-hmm.
like really uplifting that um, in a way that like could make me cry. Like I got training here in my day job here that watching affirmation videos um, to be really moving.
Thank you for sharing all of that, Ryan. I really appreciate you going into so much detail about what it looks like. It is very, how do I say this? It it grounds me in a way that actually can move me into action now. And I and that is part of what we're talking about is it is the story of ourselves while it's connected to the now and also connected to the larger narrative, but also what we are trying to do is move people or communities into action. So carrying us through what it actually looks like in an everyday scenario really can push us into moving into those steps that we need to take. And I really want to like just really much gratitude to you to coming on to the mic and sharing that with all of us. Thank you so much. I do want to let folks know that I can see chat now. I am back. And I also want to look, there's got some more stuff here. Lay making on the beach with my aunties, trying to feed me a third lunch. Me and my papa and abuelitas braiding our indigenous hair ribbons together outside. Yeah. let me open my notes really quick. Okay. Apologies for the pause. I have a little bit of tech difficulties right now. All right. Well, let's go to, we could take down the slides right now, Reggie. All right. Gotta get the full breath of everyone in the room. And I'm gonna fix my screen a little bit. Okay. So this is a workshop that we do here at the Center for Cultural Power, and it's really to prime folks after they've gone through cultural power. And we look at why culture is the way in which we move narratives and why artists are in the mix of a social justice movement. And then we move into this story of self and why it's so important that we tell our stories. And that part of this challenge of telling stories, and I think some of us kind of touched upon it, of, well, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but what it sounded like to me, what you're talking about is there might be a struggle for an attention to get people to listen and to really take into the stories. And from my own experience with this work, it feels like sometimes while we're doing all the good work of telling these stories, I often feel like there is a competition of trying to get our stories heard, and that there's a competingness to it. And what I want to really leave with all of you is, the narrative strategy of the story of self, the story of now, it's all of this. It's the many stories. All of these stories are important. All of our voices are important, and it is important that our experiences are told and that it is uplifting each other and that we don't compete for the attention. And it comes to when we have these deep values. We talked about a lot in these earlier versions when we were talking about selves. There was values of belonging, of coming together, of finding the laughs, finding a space to just show up authentically, to feel like we are of value. And when we hear more stories of it, so that we don't feel alone, there's no more isolation. The narratives that we are building, narratives really in and of itself is a container with intention. And when we seed it with our values, the deep values, we can map it towards our North Star. And that's when narratives become really powerful to move the culture. It's when we become very intentional of when we do events and when we telling these stories and showing up for each other. It's a future where our communities can live with equity, dignity, and care. And that is the work, and it's built by the stories, one by one and together. So that's actually the workshop I had planned for all of us today. I'm wondering if there's any questions or anything that anyone's wondering. Oh, you're welcome, Shai.
When will the recording be sent out? That is an amazing question. Ideally within the next week. I know some of my staff is on PTO, so I'll check in, but I typically within a week of the training. But thank you for the question. And Ezra, I see a hand up.
Hi, can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I was having some audio issues earlier. But I just want to thank you all for this amazing training. I've learned a lot. And just, trying to kind of get my feet wet, I guess, in a sense, and learning all these things. And I really appreciate the opportunity and attending. Learned a lot of really cool stuff, heard a lot of really amazing things too. Because I'm just observing and learning too, and trying to also refine my skills and how to better tell my story as well. And just kind of also hearing other people's experiences because I really do feel that isolation part a lot
Mm.
in my area, and so it's kind of I'm still trying to build also community here. Um, so I really appreciate you folks. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Ezra. And you know what? You are the best person to tell your story. So I think to starting to tell people, and you will find your rhythm and the way in which you want to tell your story too. And of course, there are tons of strategies out there on basics of all that, but when it comes down to it, it's you, and you alone will make those decisions. And just take one step forward, honestly. That has been my own practice of just facilitating and doing this kind of work. And I just appreciate you just showing up today. That's just your first step. So thank you for doing that. I do want to uplift this one question that Ryan brought in, and I really want to put it out to the group here. What are some strategies to help us get out of negative self-talk? I know there are some good strategists here in the room. Okay, right. But yeah, I really want to put that out to the group. Sure. I try to ask myself, how would I talk to a friend? Yeah. They practicing self-validation, even in small ways. I got out of bed this morning. Or Shar says also, what would I say to my friend? That's a good one.
I think to add, I have recently heard something very similar to what Shar put in the chat. Would you talk to a friend, a family member, a loved one, the way you talk to yourself in your head? And I was like, of course I wouldn't. Why would I dare? And then I was like, oh, okay. So the way we talk to ourselves in our heads sometimes, we would never even think about talking to other people. So why would we talk to ourselves that way? So I recently heard that and love what Shar also put in the chat too.
Yeah, that's so good. I also like to say to myself one step at a time that I can only just do this one step when things feel really overwhelming, and just a struggle to like just even get that moving. And as long as I could take that baby step forward, I did enough for today. So I hope that is helpful. And progress, yes, progress, not perfection. Celebrating small steps is a big one. And look at us here, all cultivating belonging. Yes, and healing isn't linear. That's a capitalistic viewpoint, too. Your own progress is your own way of being and how we move in this world. And that is belonging, that's abundance. We could talk all day long about what actually abundance actually looks like. for this space in particular, and how you all want to move forward in abundance. It looks very different for many different communities. Yeah. Thank you, Ryan, for bringing that question into the room. Yeah. Well, thank you all again. Much gratitude to NQAPIA for inviting me into this space. I'm from the Center for Cultural Power. I'll give all the links. Everything will be forwarded onto you. And then I will give my email address to Reggie if anyone, oh, here, let me just put this in here. Duh. Why make Reggie do the work? I can do it from myself. Okay. There's my email address if you would like to connect further, talk more. Yeah. Oh, my social too, if you would like to, at Julie. I'm on the Instas, not the TikTok yet. But and I would also like, thank you, Reggie, for holding all of it down. Thank you for all the tech support. Yes, big hands up. And I want to hand it over to you, Reggie. Thank you so much.